Chapter 4162. Sumo reached out and gently rubbed his hair, whispering, "Shall we get our marriage certificate tomorrow?" Konkyo's body stiffened, but he didn't say anything. He just raised his face and looked at her. Sumo's red lips parted slightly, and her breathing became rapid. Maybe he was too heavy. Konkyo kissed her. It was a wet and hot kiss, and it lasted for a long time. He was very gentle, and Sumo didn't struggle, letting him kiss her. After a long, long time, he kissed her chin. Sumo grabbed his black hair, and her breathing was a little messy. "Don't you think I'm too small?" "Not at all," he said gently, and then he kissed her. They lingered in the living room for half the night, and then because it was cold, he carried her to the master bedroom. He didn't say that he loved her, and neither did Sumo. Their union was completely because they both had only one person left. They needed each other's body temperature to warm themselves. The past seemed to become unimportant in the face of life and death. Before the arrival of true love, who didn't have 1,000 wounds. Konkyo wanted her the whole night. She knew that it wasn't to make love, but to vent the fear in his heart. He never knew that he could be afraid, and he could be so vulnerable. It was not until dawn that he said yes. He said they would get married. Sumo was so tired that she collapsed on his chest. Looking at her tired look, he remembered that she had just recovered from a serious illness, and he was too rough last night. He reached out to touch her sweaty shoulders, but he was worried, so he took a towel to wipe her down, and then got up to go to the kitchen. He made a bowl of nutritious porridge, and when it was ready, he turned off the fire, filled a beautiful bowl, and brought it to the master bedroom. He sat on the edge of the bed, and reached out to push her. "Get up and eat something." Sumo opened her eyes and slapped his hand away. "I want to sleep." But Konkyo dragged her up, and said a little forcefully, "Eat something before you go to sleep." "Konkyo." She sat up. "I said I want to sleep." "Don't bother me, aren't you? The Civil Affairs Bureau will be open in 2 hours, and then we can be legally married." "You said I'm not your man." He stared at her and asked. Sumo didn't say anything. She picked up the bowl and took a sip. It tasted very good. She ate it slowly and Konkyo put her to sleep. She closed her eyes, thinking that he would leave soon, but he didn't. He continued to whisper in her ear, "Sumo, I'm serious. I want to live with you forever." Hugging a pillow in each hand, she murmured, "Me too." Konkyo sat on the edge of the bed and reached out to touch her face. His voice was slightly hoarse. "But I don't think you're that serious." Sumo opened his eyes and looked at him calmly. "Konkyo, you didn't even give me a single ring, so why are you talking about being serious with me?" As soon as she finished speaking, her fingertips felt cold. She looked down and saw a shiny diamond ring on her fingertip. It was about 10 carats in size. "I have a diamond ring. Is that considered serious?" he asked her hoarsely. Sumo's eyes were slightly moist. His impulse from last night seemed to have become a reality. She looked down at the diamond ring on her hand and whispered, "Konkyo, are we really going to get married? You want to go back on your word?" He smiled. "Go to sleep. I'll wake you up to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. I'll go to your house to get the household register." After saying that, he took out her house key from her bag. Sumo stopped him. "It's on the way. Why do you have to make this trip?" End of this chapter. Chapter 4163. Konkyo was stunned, and then reached out to touch her face. "You're thinking about me so soon." Sumo bit her lip. "You think too much." "Really?" He smiled, and then lay down with her. She screamed, and he directly pulled the quilt over her, and even dragged her body into his arms. Suemo struggled, but she couldn't break free. Kong Qiao buried her face in his arms. I'm tired, too. Let's sleep for a while. Suemo didn't say anything. She leaned against his arms, and after a while, she hit him again. It seems that I agreed too easily. Kong Qiao closed his eyes and smiled slightly. Is the diamond ring I gave you not big enough? Or are you not satisfied last night? Sumo's answer was to hit him twice, and then she became quiet. Kong Qiao turned over and hugged her. He didn't say anything, but just held her. Sumo's eyes were also quietly moist. After a long time, she whispered, Kong Qiao, be nice to me. He said, don't force me to have a baby. I haven't thought about it yet. He said, Suemo lay on his chest, and he bowed his head. What else? She raised her eyes and then said softly, nothing. Kong Qiao smiled. Then let's sleep. It was only 2 hours after they woke up, mainly because they couldn't sleep soundly with things in their minds. After waking up, they looked at each other, and Kong Qiao said, get up and go to get the certificate. Suemo didn't move. He said slowly, you won't regret it, will you? Get up, who regrets it? Suemo quickly got up, and then glanced at Kong Qiao. Don't get up, do you regret it? He smiled, quickly got up, put on his shirt and trousers, and didn't avoid in front of her. Suemo stared at him, and then said softly, in the future, others won't see it. No, I promise. He leaned over and kissed her. Our marriage is loyal to both sides. Suemo showed a fierce expression. If you dare to cheat, I'll destroy you. Kong Qiao smiled and pinched her little face. Go wash your face and brush your teeth, we'll leave in a while. He casually rubbed his face. While Suemo was washing up, he made breakfast. After breakfast, he took her to her apartment to get her household register and then went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Fortunately, there weren't many people there, so it only took half an hour. When they came out, each of them had a red booklet in their hands. Kong Qiao waved the booklet in his hand. Leave them to me for safekeeping. After saying that, he took away all the books in Sumo's hands. Sumo's hand was empty, and he glared at him. Why? Because I'm your husband. You have to listen to me, he said matter-of-factly. Then he held her hand. All right, let's go home. Suemo got into the car and suddenly remembered something. By the way, your mother, isn't she moving in with us? Kong Qiao was silent. I mentioned it many times, but she refused. I wanted to move back, but she refused as well. Suemo placed her hand on the back of his and said softly, then we'll stay at your mother's place. There should be extra rooms there, right? He nodded. My room is still there, and it's clean. It's just a little simple, and even the bathroom is shared. It's okay. There used to be several people in my family living in a house that was less than 40 square meters. Suemo said softly, can you go to my place and pack your luggage now? Just move over. You can move your things slowly. Kong Qiao looked at her quietly, and then he didn't say anything. He just hugged her body. He said yes, he thanked her, and then he said, Suemo, I love you. End of this chapter. Chapter 4164. Suemo snorted. I don't know if I love you or not. But I check you every night with a magnifying glass. I think I should get a hound so that I can know if you have the smell of another woman. Kong Qiao looked at her lazily. Do you need a dog? Won't you be able to smell it clearly? Suemo could tell that he was scolding her. You said I'm a dog. She glared at him. Kong Chiao showed a faint smile. A hound. Su Mo turned his head and looked out of the window. I'm already regretting it. There's no use regretting it, Mrs. Kong. He started the car and said while driving, let's hold the wedding as soon as possible. Su Mo looked at him. Are you sure? A small one, only for family and friends. It won't be extravagant. What do you think? Kong Chiao asked for her opinion. Su Mo thought for a while and didn't say anything. She just nodded slightly. Kong Chiao's lips curled up slightly. He held the steering wheel tightly. He was always worried in his heart. The car stopped in front of Teacher Kang's house. Su Mo was carrying a bag of fruits while Kong Chiao was behind with her suitcase. She held a cigarette in one hand and put it out at the door. They knocked on the door and the housekeeper opened it. When she saw Su Mo and Kong Chiao, she smiled and said, "You're here." Kong Chiao asked, "How is my mother today?" "Teacher Kong is fine." The housekeeper smiled. "She's basking in the sun and listening to the opera." Kong Chiao nodded, took the luggage in and went to the balcony with Su Mo. It was an old house, and the walls were covered with green creepers. Teacher Kong was leaning on the recliner. She was in good spirits, but Su Mo noticed that she had lost a lot of weight. "Teacher Kong." Su Mo squatted in front of her and said in a low voice, "I'm here to see you." Teacher Kang's eyes were closed, but now she slowly opened them. She was very happy to see Su Mo. "Why are you here? Don't you have to work today?" "There are professionals there, so I don't have to go there every day." Su Mo's voice was a little soft. "Kong Chiao and I want to live here." Teacher Kang's eyes lit up. She sat up slowly and looked at her son. "You two live together?" The old man still couldn't believe it. Kong Chiao smiled and squatted down. She took out 2 red booklets from her pocket and said, "Mom, look, Su Mo and I are married." Teacher Kang's eyes immediately lit up. He looked carefully and raised his voice, "Shoying, help me get my reading glasses." The auntie sighed and passed the glasses to Teacher Kong. "Old madam, the glasses are here." Teacher Kong put on his glasses. Then, he looked at the marriage certificate carefully. He looked at every aspect of it carefully. "Yes, it's true," said the old lady. Kong Chiao smiled. "Mom, do you still think this is fake?" Teacher Kong returned the things to him and looked at Su Mo. "How would I know if you're working with Su Mo to make me happy?" The old lady helped him up and touched Su Mo's hand. "Come here, Mom will give you something." Su Mo nodded and looked at Kong Chiao. Kong Chiao raised her chin and said, "Go on, Mom will eat you up." Su Mo made a face at him and said, "Help me pack my luggage." Kong Chiao glanced at her and pulled her luggage to her bedroom. The auntie wanted to help, but Kong Chiao refused. The auntie thought that it was indeed inconvenient for a newlywed couple, so she didn't insist. End of chapter. Chapter 4165. On the other side, Su Mo followed Teacher Kong into the bedroom. Teacher Kong opened a cabinet and took out a lacquer box. It was made by Yangzhou craftsmanship and was very exquisite. Old Madam held it and sat on the edge of the bed. Her fingers stroked the box and said softly, "This is my dowry." Many years have passed and Kong Chiao is already married. I thought I would not be able to see it in my lifetime. As she said that, she couldn't help but feel a little sad. Su Mo leaned her head on her shoulder and said softly, "Mom, Kong Chiao and I are married now." Her hand touched Teacher Kang's hand and held it. She didn't say anything and just felt the warmth from it. Teacher Kong let out a long sigh and looked at Su Mo. "You are a good child. If Kong Chiao bullies you in the future, just tell me." although she might not be able to live for long. She reached out and opened the box and took out a property certificate. This is the certificate of this house. You can keep it in the future. Maybe one day we can change the name and write Kong Chiao or you. I have to change the name when I get old. It's easier when I'm alive. Sumo was unhappy. Mom, don't say such discouraging words. There's still a long way to go. Teacher Kong patted her. I know you are trying to make me happy. I know how my body is. Kong Chiao is willing to spend money and time, but this disease can't be cured. Teacher Kong took out a smaller box and opened it. There was a pair of king green jade bracelets and a white jade pendant. They were all expensive items. Old Madam took out a bracelet and put it on Sumo. She said softly, "It's not suitable for me to wear this when I was a teacher. You are young and Kong Chiao can earn it too. You can keep it in the future. I don't have many things to give you. Even this was saved up in the past." Sumo bit her lips and choked. "Thank you, Mom." "What are you thanking me for? We are a family now." Old Madam changed the topic. "Look at me at home. You are young and shouldn't be guarding an old lady like me all the time. Young people should live their own lives." Sumo couldn't stand it anymore. She hugged her and rested her face on her shoulder. "Mom, I don't care. We will always guard you." Teacher Kong looked down and said after a long time, "It's not auspicious to get married so early." How could she bear to do that? Sumo persisted. In the end, he directly said that if he wanted to chase them away, he would directly tell Kong Chiao. Teacher Kong had no other choice. During lunch, she said, "Kong Chiao, I've thought about it. I think it's better for me to stay in the hospital." Kong Chiao looked at Sumo and smiled. "Did you change your mind?" Teacher Kong said helplessly, "I don't feel free if the two of you keep staring at me. The hospital is even less free." Concho whispered. Sumo kicked him under the table, indicating for him to speak politely. Kong Chiao did not say anything else and only said to contact the hospital in the afternoon. Teacher Kang's illness was like this. If he didn't receive treatment, he would only have a few months left at home. If he was more proactive, he might have 2 to 3 years left, and he might even suffer a little. If Kong Chiao was given a choice, he would rather let his mother suffer a little more, but at least she could live a few more years. At least she could see him start a family, marry a wife and have children. Before coming here, he didn't arrange things with Sumo, and it was completely natural for him to push it. Sumo wasn't a fool, and only when he said that he would arrange for a hospital did he realize that he had been set up. End of chapter. Chapter 4166. If they didn't get married and live in this small apartment, he would have been able to convince his mother, but he just coaxed her into marrying him. Originally, she wanted to be angry, but she really couldn't get angry. Later, she left her things here, and she could buy more when she lived at his place. Now, it was still Teacher Kang's condition. In the afternoon, Sumo stayed at home to accompany the old lady, while Kong Chiao went to Xingyuan Hospital to talk to Qin Chen about the old lady's condition. In Qin Chen's private office, Kong Chiao presented a painting that was worth over 100 million yuan and personally hung it up for Qin Chen. Dr. Qin was making coffee, and then he tilted his head to admire it for a while. When the coffee was ready, he poured a cup for himself and Kong Chiao. Holding the cup and smelling the fragrance of the hand-ground coffee, he smiled softly. "You don't think that I deliberately blackmailed you, do you?" "No." Kong Chiao smiled bitterly and took a sip of coffee. "I've shown my mother's information to the foreign experts. Now the best solution is you. I'm just showing my filial piety." Qin Chen looked at him and then frowned. Kong Chiao, in fact, you know that some things can be reversed, but it goes against the laws of nature and is even more unacceptable. Of course, there are many Yuan Isher who secretly came to me, and I almost rejected them. There are no more than 10 cases of such surgery in my hands, and they are all people close to me. As she spoke, her gaze became distant. Have you heard of the French Renault Group? It's all the rage now. Kong Chiao stared at her and also knew that she didn't want him to answer. This was just because Qin Chen recalled some past events that he usually didn't want to think about. He somewhat understood why she rejected him before. It was because it wasn't a very pleasant experience. Qin Chen whispered, because of my medical skills, my mentor died, and a friend of mine lost a little finger for me. She was very beautiful, and the person who made all of this happen was my first love. Kong Chiao. I can treat your mother, but we have to sign an agreement. Do you understand? I'm very afraid of trouble. I'm not alone. I have a family and children, and I have a big family behind me. Qin Chen said very directly. Kong Chiao's fingers clenched, then she asked very softly, why did you help me? It's because of Qin Mo. Aren't you his money tree? Qin Chen smiled, but Kong Chiao knew it wasn't the truth. It was most likely because of Su Mo. The relationship between Su Mo and Wen Yuan, and then the relationship between Wen Yuan and the Yi family. Qin Chen smiled, yes, your wife has a close relationship with the Yi family. You're very well informed. I just got my marriage certificate this morning. Kong Chiao smiled. Qin Chen sighed. It's just a guess. Men's tricks are similar. She suddenly recalled how she and Lan Yu got to know each other. At first, Lan Yu thought that she was a man and called her a quack. Later on, he was ready to accept this strange sexual orientation. It was only when he took off her clothes that he realized that she was a woman. Just thinking about it made her feel good. Feeling refreshed, Qin Chen made himself another cup of coffee. Life was wonderful. Looking at her calmly making coffee, Kong Chiao couldn't help but ask softly, how long can my mother live after the operation? Can she live for 3 years? Qin Chen stood there and said, yes, I think so. I think she can live for more than 10 years. By the way, is she in her 60s this year? According to the normal age, she should have about 20 years left. Kong Chiao's throat seemed to be blocked, and she couldn't believe it. End of this chapter. Chapter 4167. Qin Chen looked at Kong Chiao as if he was looking at a little dog. Qin Chen was a woman who was 10 times more handsome than a man. Even men like Bai Jingxian and Kong Chiao were inferior in front of Qin Chen. Qin Chen was the most handsome person in this book. Of course, she was also showy and extravagant. If she wasn't a black-hearted doctor, how could she afford her expenses? At this moment, she looked at Kong Chiao and said, give me the film. Kong Chiao quickly took it. Qin Chen looked at it carefully for a long time and then said, it shouldn't be a big problem. The main thing is that it hasn't spread to an uncontrollable place. Bring it to the hospital tomorrow and stay in the most expensive ward. The medical fees and surgery fees will be 80 million yuan. You can go home after a month. Although it was a sky-high price, Kong Chiao still said thank you. For some reason, he was willing to believe Qin Chen's words. Why? Because in front of Qin Chen, they were all little dogs. When Kong Chiao left, Qin Chen said, this painting is called First Love. Take it. How much is it? Write a check for me. Of all things, you have to give me first love. Kong Chiao was speechless. It turned out that this was where Qin Chen's story came from. He really couldn't keep this painting, but he could take it back and hang it in his and Su Mo's residence. Kong Chiao wrote the check and said, Dr. Chin, you're really simple and rough. I'm only simple to you guys. I'm only rough to Lon Yu. Chin Chen flicked the check and smiled. Kong Chiao, being a star is really profitable. Look at the money you earn from your fans. They treat you as their idol. If I earn some money, I don't know how many people will call me a black-hearted doctor in their hearts. Not at all. Dr. Chin has a good reputation both at home and abroad. Kong Chiao flattered him. He still had some eyes in the entertainment industry. Chin Chen was born into a good family, so he didn't care about money. It was just a hobby. Chin Chen smiled. Kong Chiao, you used the word reputation very well. She patted him. For the sake of 180 million yuan, I'll treat you to another cup of coffee. You have to know that the cost of a cup of coffee is about tens of thousands. Then, Kong Chiao couldn't drink anymore. No wonder Chin Chen wanted to be a black-hearted doctor. This kind of life was too extravagant. Envy, jealousy, hatred. After Kong Chiao left, Chin Chen took a good look at the film for a long time. Then, he pulled out Kong Chiao's mother's information from the computer. Actually, she lied. She said it was because of the Yi clan, but that was not the case. She just felt that Teacher Kong was a good person. She knew that old Madam Kong had always been passionate about public welfare. She also heard that old Madam Kong had always been very strict with her professional ethics. She was willing to make an exception for such a person. Such a person should live longer. On the other side, Kong Chiao went back and asked the auntie to go back and make some preparations. She would be hospitalized tomorrow. Other than his mother, he would hire 2 special nurses to take care of her. He was not a selfish man. He felt that Su Mo had to stay by his mother's bedside all the time. That would be unfair to Su Mo. Su Mo didn't object either. A major surgery required more people to take care of her. Kong Chiao didn't tell Teacher Kong the details. He was afraid that she would feel burdened. He only said that the surgery would allow her to live for a few more years. Even so, Teacher Kong was already very happy. Back in the bedroom, Kong Chiao told Su Mo about Chin Chen's words. She sat up immediately. Really? That's amazing. Kong Chiao smiled. It should be true. Chin Chen is the best surgeon in the world. I believe that she can cure. Chapter 4168. Su Mo was also very happy. She talked with Kong Chiao for a long time. When it was late at night, she still felt worried and went to Mrs. Kang's bedroom. She personally poured a glass of water for her and watched her drink it. Then, she helped her to the toilet. When Mrs. Kong lay down, she sighed softly, I just don't want you to worry about me all the time. That's why I don't want you to live with me. I always feel bad. You young people should have your own life. Su Mo sat beside her, it's good to be with you. Mrs. Kong smiled helplessly, actually, I know that you can marry Kong Chiao so quickly because he told me about my illness. I actually know this child very well, but there's nothing I can do about it. Kong Chiao was like her but also not like her. But, she knew that Kong Chiao was not a bad child. Otherwise, he would not have chosen to live with Su Mo. Su Mo was such a good girl. Now that they were married, she could really rest assured and close her eyes. After Mrs. Kong finished speaking, Su Mo's voice was gentle, no, we just couldn't find a reason to be together. Now that it's considered a reason, it should be natural. She still felt a little awkward, so she said softly, Mom, actually, I like Kong Chiao very much. Teacher Kong laughed so hard that his eyes were curved. Like, what a beautiful word. It reminded her of the old man who died early. She sighed with nostalgia. You and Kong Chiao should live a good life in the future. Sumo wanted to say something, but after thinking about it, she swallowed it and did not say anything. Mrs. Kong smiled and said, Go back to your room, you don't have to accompany me. You guys should really go out and have fun as newlyweds. Mom, there will be a chance in the future. You should get well first, then we can go out and have fun as a family. Sumo said softly, then pulled the quilt for the old lady and dimmed the lights. I'm going to sleep first. If you want to come at night, call me. My phone is here, you can call me directly. Mrs. Kong said yes. Sumo went back to her room. Kong Chiao was waiting for her after taking a shower. She thought that he was going to sleep and turn off the lights. But as soon as she turned off the lights, she was hugged by him. Then, she felt something hot on her neck. Kong Chiao's voice was particularly hoarse. Honey, let's do it. Sumo was particularly helpless. She closed her eyes and said, Kong Chiao, we're at your mother's house right now. What if we stay here for a month and we don't have X to live? He asked her directly. As he spoke, he rubbed against her like a big dog. We've just gotten married, and you're already giving me the cold shoulder. No, you're being unreasonable. Sumo lost her temper and said in a low voice, There's no such thing here. It's not suitable for us to get pregnant now, and I'm not in good health either. He smiled and said warmly in her ear, I bought a box. In the darkness, Sumo couldn't help but roll her eyes. She knew he wasn't a good person. This was too despicable. In the end, he forced himself on her once, and only then did he let it go. It was probably because he was too repressed that the feeling was very different from usual. Late at night, Kong Chiao finally stopped. He lay flat on the bed and tilted his head to look at his wife. Sumo, I'm really happy today. His mother's illness was hopeful, and he was married. Although his methods were a little dishonorable, he would have a family in the future. He had plans in mind, but he would only have time and energy to do everything after his mother's surgery was completed. He wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, hubby, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, he followed Yudu literature, talking about life and looking for bosom friends. Chapter 4169. That night, Sumo was so tired that she fell asleep, but Kong Chiao did not sleep. He thought about a lot of things and felt that life was a wonderful thing. In this house, he and Wen Yuan had the most beautiful memories, but he had never thought that he would end up with Sumo. Moreover, Wen Yuan had brought Sumo to his side. He could still remember Wen Yuan asking him how Sumo was, and he had said that Xiong was too young. And now, he was infatuated with the body next to him. Kong Chiao smiled slightly, smelling the fragrance of the flowers blooming outside the window. It was as beautiful as when he was young. He and Sumo were not each other's first love, but for the rest of their lives, they would love each other and care about each other the most. That was good. Kong Chiao suddenly got up and walked to the window, smelling the light fragrance. His heart, which had been restless when he entered the entertainment industry, suddenly calmed down. Because there was someone he cared about here, and because there was someone he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. There was no other time he felt more grounded than now. He didn't care about the absurdity of the past, because it was the past that led to his meeting with Sumo when Yuan was right. If he was the devil, then Sumo was the angel that saved him. One black and one white, they should be together. Kong Chiao stood for a long time before returning to the bed. Sumo was still asleep. He lay on his side beside her, not having the heart to wake her up, but feeling that he would be letting himself down if he didn't do something. He whispered in her ear, I like you. One day, he hoped to hear her say that she liked him with his own ears. He thought that it would be in the near future. Perhaps it would be when they had a child. He wasn't in a hurry, and he wasn't the kind of man who liked to listen to flattery. He hoped that one day, Sumo would feel his love and say it naturally. That was a wonderful thing. He had been in love before, thinking that it was wonderful. Now that he had fallen in love with someone again and was being loved, he realized that two-sided love was unimaginably wonderful. That feeling of being able to let go of everything to be by her side, the feeling of having a little person behind you even though the whole world had turned its back on you. Kong Chao thought that he wouldn't have to be envious of others anymore. He would work hard to love her, so that all women would be envious of him. Concho could not bear to sleep, the night was too wonderful, and at length he could not bear it and fell asleep. He used the fragrance of the flowers to fall asleep. He used the sounds of the insects outside the window to fall asleep. He used the breathing of the people around him to fall asleep. All of this was too wonderful. It was the most wonderful thing he had ever experienced in his life. At dawn, he woke up. Although he had only slept for 3 or 4 hours, he was more energetic than usual because he had slept well. He listened and realized that his mother had woken up. Kong Chao immediately got up and kissed Sumo before putting on his shirt and trousers. Casually wiping his face, he went outside. Teacher Kong woke up and was making breakfast in the kitchen. "Mom, why are you making breakfast? Didn't I tell you not to do housework anymore? You just won't listen." Kong Chao went over to take over and reprimanded her softly. Teacher Kong let go and looked at him. "Auntie won't be here today. I think you guys should sleep a little longer after getting married. It's not like I can't move, it's not a big deal to make breakfast for you guys. Kong Chao, don't make a fuss. Mom's illness has made Sumo at a loss. Last night, she refused to leave my room. You married someone who loves you dearly, not to be our nanny." He wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. WeChat followed Yudu literature, talking about life, looking for bosom friends. Chapter 4170. Kong Chao smiled. "Mom, you're thinking too much. Sumo cares about you, not because of marrying me. Think about how good your relationship was before." Teacher Kong thought about it. She also smiled. "That's true, but you have to be more careful when you're married. You can't let others be wronged. You'd rather work hard yourself, understand?" The old lady thought about how her son would give birth to a child and live happily with Sumo. She felt comfortable and didn't care too much about her illness. "Mom, you'll be with us for a long time. In the future, Sumo and I will have 2 children." Kong Chao smiled. Teacher Kong was surprised. "She's willing to have children." She said it. Nowadays, many young people are not willing to have children. If you love each other, you'll definitely have children. Otherwise, why do you need a marriage certificate? You can just live together when you're happy. Kong Chao skillfully did the housework. Wait for 1.5 years. During this time, your body will recover, and Sumo and I will be relieved. Teacher Kong wanted to say something, but she silently swallowed it and didn't say anything. Kong Chao patted her. "Mom, I found the best doctor, and the doctor said that the surgery is very confident." The old lady was originally negative, or maybe she felt that she was a burden to her son, but at this moment, her heart came alive again. Thinking about it, she felt very happy. In 1 year or 2, she would be able to hold a grandson or granddaughter, and then she would be able to talk to her husband more. I'm better than you, old thing. Not only did I raise Kong Chao, but I also raised him well, and now I have a grandson." Teacher Kong thought about it and couldn't help smiling. She then said softly, "Kong Chao, in the future, you have to be more stable. Don't associate with shady women anymore. Now that you have a wife and children, you're no longer the same as before. If you lose them again, Mom won't be able to help you. Mom. Kong Chao couldn't help but say, "What are you thinking? How can I do that? It's best if you don't." The old lady smiled. Su Mo is very good. There's absolutely no problem with his character. If there's anything wrong with your children in the future, then it's your fault. Kong Chao let out a long sigh. Mom, now that you have a wife, you've forgotten about your son. What's wrong with that? It wasn't easy for you to get a wife, so of course I have to take care of her for you. Think about it, you're almost 40, and it's not easy for you. Su Mo is only in his 20s. Mr. Kong rolled his eyes at his son, then started making dumplings with him. She was in a good mood and seemed to be in better spirits. Kong Chao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Mom, you're thinking too much. Su Mo is in her early 30s. She's no longer a young lady in her 20s. Teacher Kong ignored him and scoffed. I think Su Mo is still young and tender, unlike you who acts recklessly. That's why he looks young. Kong Chao heaved a sigh of relief. Mom, can you even find fault with this? The old lady laughed. She laughed very happily and made a dumpling. Aya, that's enough. Go and wake Su Mo up for breakfast. He thought for a moment and said, she must be tired. Why don't she take a nap? Kong Chao laughed. Mom, you're spoiling her rotten. Then, he winked. How do you know that she's tired? Teacher Kang's face flushed red. Child, you're still using that to tease me. How could I not know your temper? That's why I don't agree with you guys coming back. Su Mo is thin-skinned and can't take it. How uncomfortable would she be? You're really... Chapter 4171. Before Teacher Kong could finish, he glared at her. Su Mo stood at the entrance of the kitchen, grabbing at her messy hair with a slightly uncomfortable look on her face. It was obvious that she had heard the conversation between the mother and son. She didn't expect that such a serious and loving elder like Teacher Kong would talk about this with her son. Su Mo's face turned red as she scratched her hair again. I'm going back to my room to brush my teeth and wash my face. With that said, she left. She ran in a hurry, looking as though she was shy. Teacher Kong looked at his son. See, it's not convenient, right? It's just a private conversation. How would I know she would wake up? Kong Chao smiled. Mom, cook the dumplings. I'll go check on Su Mo. Teacher Kong stopped him. Are you coming out in a while or wait for an hour? Kong Chao was helpless. Mom, we're going to the hospital later. I'm not as beastly as you think I am. What kind of person did his mother think he was? Teacher Kong smiled. Go on, go on. It's fine to talk for a while longer. I'll go alone. Kong Chao had already gone to the bedroom. He then remembered that the bathroom was for public use and went to the bathroom. Indeed, Su Mo was brushing her teeth. Her face was red as she brushed her teeth. He smiled. What's wrong? Are you sorry? I'm not. Her voice was a little muffled. Don't talk about this in front of Mom in the future. It will affect her impression of me. Kong Chao looked at her and smiled. He moved closer to her and hugged her waist from behind. He rested his chin on her shoulder and said softly, It took me a long time to fall asleep last night. You slept like a pig. With that said, he kissed her on the cheek. Last night was actually our wedding night. This morning is quite important as well. Mrs. Kong, aren't you going to give your husband a good morning kiss? Sumo's mouth was full of toothpaste bubbles. When he said that, she impolitely kissed him, making his lips white. She smiled. Is this okay? He smiled. No sincerity. It's a little sweet. This must be a fruit-flavored toothpaste. I have a little psychological barrier. Otherwise, I would have kissed you even if you were brushing your teeth. Sumo continued to brush her teeth. He hugged her for a while longer before letting her go. He patted her waist and said, "Change your clothes and come out for breakfast. I made it myself." His voice was a bit hoarse, but it was pleasant to listen to. There was an indescribable warmth to it. Sumo found that she quite liked the way he spoke, so she smiled and nodded. They were newlyweds. Even though they had sex countless times in the past, he still couldn't help but lean over to kiss her. Sumo shouted, "I still have toothpaste in my mouth." He kept kissing her neck, kissing her here and there, kissing her until her breathing became erratic. Later, Kong Chiao also felt a little warm. She hugged her and said in a hoarse voice, "When Mom is in the hospital, let's move back. It's really not convenient here." She tilted her head and said, "Mom, you should move in with us after she's discharged. You can't let her live alone." He laughed. "You convince her." "What do you mean?" "You're useless yourself. You need your wife to convince you." Sumo bit his chin. He lifted her chin. "Miss Su, this is one of the benefits of marrying you. My mother likes you very much. Not because of love." Sumo bit him again. He chuckled. "You're a puppy. If you say you like puppies, I'll help you. Because puppies are stupid." She complained. "You should shave. It's too prickly." Chapter 4172. The moment she said that, Kong Chiao smiled. Burying his face in her tender neck, he asked in a hoarse voice, "Did it hurt last night?" Sumo looked at him. "I'm going out. I'll come out after I wash my face." Kong Chiao was still smiling as he kissed her cheeks in a good mood before heading out. Sumo wiped her face and looked at her own face in the mirror. There was some redness on her face, which was completely different from the paleness from before. She reached out and pinched her face. Indeed, it was not a dream. She was really living in Kong Chiao's house, and they were married. She went to change into another set of clothes before heading to the dining room. Everything here was very simple. The dining room was only about 10 square meters, and the furniture was made of solid wood. When she came out, Kong Chiao brought a bowl of piping hot dumplings over and placed it in front of her. "There's quite a lot. If you can't finish it, I'll finish it for you." Sumo's eyes curved into crescents as he smiled. "You're so nice." When he sat down, he leaned towards her. "Don't you know how nice you are?" Sumo really could not take it when he was joking so openly in front of Teacher Kong. She glanced at him and said softly, "Kong Chiao, don't go overboard." "Overboard?" He lowered his voice again. "I'm the one who's overboard if I don't touch you." Sumo could not help but roll her eyes. "You're too much." Kong Chiao smiled and took care of Mother Kong. Sumo glanced at him and lowered her head to eat her breakfast. Her eyes were gentle, which was the expression of a woman who was loved. Kong Chiao felt a little satisfied in his heart as well. The atmosphere in the Kong family had never been this good. After breakfast, Sumo said that she would help her pack her luggage, and Teacher Kong did not reject her. When Sumo went to her bedroom to pack, Teacher Kong said to Kong Chiao, "After I'm discharged, let's have a wedding. We can't let Sumo suffer. Moreover, you have a lot of temptations around you, so it's better to be married." Kong Chiao smiled. That's great. I want to give Su Mo a wedding too, but I'm afraid that she won't be willing. How can there be a woman who doesn't like to wear a beautiful wedding dress? Teacher Kong scolded. You're just dragging it out. As she said that, she took out a card from her pocket. There's more than 2 million yuan in this. Although I know you're rich, this is a little something for me to buy something for Su Mo. Don't girls nowadays like to say that a bag can cure all kinds of diseases? That's right. Kong Chiao squeezed the card in her hand. Mom, if this bag can cure all kinds of diseases, I will immediately buy 100 for you. Then, she added, when Su Mo was a manager, she was quite particular. Now, she's very casual. Just look at her. She can buy anything she wants with this money. You have to accompany her. Teacher Kong laughed and scolded, you're almost 40. Don't let your mother teach you how to love your wife. Kong Chiao smiled and said, Mother can teach me when she has time. Teacher Kong laughed and scolded a few more times, then said, Go and tidy up with your wife, I'm going to rest for a while. Kong Chiao nodded and walked into Teacher Kang's bedroom. Su Mo was tidying up. When he saw Kong Chiao enter, he said softly, I only brought 2 sets of light clothes for Mom. I was afraid that she would get used to the things in the hospital, so most of them are daily necessities. Do you think they're okay? Kong Chiao looked at it, nothing could be more comprehensive. After that, he pulled her over and kissed her. He stuffed a card into her hand. There's more than 2 million in here. Mom is giving it to you. Don't transfer it to the home of love. This is our family's private money. If they need money, you and I will take it. I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Follow You Read Literature on WeChat, chatting about life and looking for a bosom friend. Chapter 4173. Holding the card, Su Mo felt sweet, sour, and bitter in her heart. After a long time, she said softly, Kong Chiao, sometimes I'm jealous that you have a good mother. You're a good mother who gives money. He pinched her face, our Mrs. Kong is so realistic. Su Mo looked at him without saying anything. There was a touch of tears in her eyes. He knew that she was thinking of her family. Su Mo had no family before. He reached out and took her into his arms. Mom and I will be your family in the future. How about I give my mother to you? She only loves you. I'm jealous of you. Then he pinched her little hand. Look, she has given you her private money. Are you still not satisfied? Yes. Su Mo smiled, let's go out. As soon as they went out, they saw that there was another person in the house. It was Wen Yuan. Just when they were stunned, another person came in the door. It was Yi Mubai. Yi Mubai's voice was calm, let's go if you're ready. Kong Chiao went over and shook hands with him, Boss Yi, thank you and Wen Yuan. Yi Mubai smiled, Wen Yuan loves Miss Kong very much. She was worried and excited today. She wanted to fly here. Kong Chiao looked at Wen Yuan. Wen Yuan was also embarrassed. He held Miss Kong. Kong Chiao, why didn't you say so earlier? Yi Mubai answered, yes, she cried a ton at home and forced me to find the best doctor for her. At this time, Kong Chiao knew that the reason why Qin Chen agreed so readily was probably because of the Yi family. He didn't say anything. He went over and hugged Wen Yuan, whispering, thank you, Wen Yuan. Wen Yuan looked at his CEO Yi and was in a dilemma. Su Mo said, Kong Chiao, you can put it down. I don't want to take care of you even if you're not afraid of being beaten. Kong Chiao smiled and then held Su Mo in his arms. Su Mo, my wife. Wen Yuan was stunned. Yi Mubai, on the other hand, was very calm, as if he had already expected this. Congratulations. As he spoke, he thought for a moment. Oh right, Kong Chiao, I bought a unit next to your villa. I'll give it to you and Su Mo as a wedding gift. Teacher Kong can live there. It's very convenient. Wen Yuan turned his head and looked at his husband. Mubai, when did you buy a villa there? CEO Yi touched his nose. He didn't tell his wife that he had bought it to live with her. He wanted to piss Kong Chiao off, but now the place had changed. Everyone already had a wife, so there was no need to fight over them. He thought for a moment and said, I have them everywhere. It's just a coincidence. Wen Yuan was skeptical, but as a man, Kong Chiao could understand this kind of dark thoughts very well. His eyes couldn't help but fall on Yi Mubai's face. CEO Yi smiled shamelessly. I'll ask secretary he to send the key over later. Kong Chiao accepted. It was better for him to stay in this kind of house. Leaving it in Yi Mubai's hands would be a piece of evidence. However, he really owed the Yi clan a huge favor. Not just money, but a favor. Only the Yi family had the ability to call the wind and summon the rain in B City. Kong Chiao sighed in his heart, but in the end, he didn't say much. This matter was over. Teacher Kong was sent to Xingyuan Hospital. In the morning, she mainly had a checkup. Kong Chiao accompanied her and let Su Mo rest, so that she and Wen Yuan could have time to chat. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Besides, marriage was such a big thing, so Wen Yuan would definitely ask about it. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. WeChat followed Yudu literature, talking about life, looking for bosom friends. Chapter 4174. In a cafe outside the hospital, Wen Yuan drank a cup of coffee and looked up. Say it. Say what? Su Mo played dumb as usual. Wen Yuan glanced at her. About your marriage. Don't tell me that you left your fingerprint while you were asleep. Marriage. Su Mo's voice was dragged out. It was obvious that she was stalling for time. However, Wen Yuan knew her very well. He pinched her face so that she wouldn't have a chance to think about it. Tell me honestly. Did Kong Chiao use Teacher Kang's illness to trick you? Did you get soft-hearted and marry him after a night of sleep? Su Mo was drinking coffee to cover it up. Now that she heard it, she sprayed a mouthful of coffee straight on Wen Yuan's face. Then it became a little messy. I'm sorry. Let me wipe it for you. Su Mo apologized. I didn't mean it. Wen Yuan glared at her. Su Mo put on a fake smile. I just. Wen Yuan, how can you be so good at guessing? She smiled foolishly. It was obvious that she was playing dumb. Wen Yuan wiped his face clean and reached out to knock on her hair. I'm not good at guessing. You're too stupid. Too stupid. Kong Chiao's tricks could only fool Su Mo, but Su Mo wasn't so stupid before. Now, Su Mo looked at Wen Yuan pitifully and said like a little lamb, I know you must think that I'm useless. But Wen Yuan, maybe I'm a little lonely. Or maybe I feel that when Kong Chiao needs me, I feel a sense of security when I'm with him. Stupid. Wen Yuan said again. Su Mo pitifully said in a small voice, Wen Yuan. Don't act like a spoiled child in front of me. Wen Yuan looked at her. Go and act like a spoiled child in front of Kong Chiao. But I only like you. Su Mo was like a puppy again. Wen Yuan laughed, then suddenly sighed. Su Mo, do you think I'll blame you? He reached out and held her hand. You know, I want you to be happy. I selfishly hope that the person will be Kong Chiao because he is also an important person to me. Besides, Teacher Kong has been looking forward to his marriage for a long time. Su Mo's eyes widened. When Yuan, you lied to me again. I'm not lying to you. When Yuan stroked her hair. I'm afraid that you'll suffer. If it's Kong Chiao, at least I can guarantee that you won't be cheated by men. Moreover, Kong Chiao can take care of you. I'm not worried about that. Su Mo's heart throbbed. When Yuan, you've never told me this before. I thought you would understand. When Yuan chuckled. I've always been willing to fill a bottomless pit myself. I just don't want you to one day become someone other than Su Mo for the sake of money. The current Su Mo was still the Su Mo of the past. He had never changed. That was why Kong Chiao fell in love with him and slowly settled down. It was actually quite good. When Yuan smiled and lowered his voice. I'll also give you a big gift when the time comes. Just you wait. Su Mo didn't say anything. He just came over and hugged her. Alright, you're a woman with a husband in the future. When Yuan ruffled her hair. If Kong Chiao bullies you, tell me. I will teach him a lesson for you. If it doesn't work, tell Teacher Kong. She will teach Kong Chiao a lesson. Su Mo nodded and took out a card. This is from Teacher Kong. It's more than 2 million yuan. When Yuan laughed. Look at how silly you look when you laugh. Su Mo was a little embarrassed. Let's go back. The test results should be out by now. I have to stay in the hospital for the next few days. Help me visit my place occasionally. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talk about life and find confidence. Chapter 4175. Su Mo was a little embarrassed. Let's go back. The results of the test should be out by now. I have to stay in the hospital for a few days. You can go to my place occasionally. When Yuan nodded. Don't worry, I will. By the way, Bai Jingxian is acting like a substitute. He even went to the hospital these days. It's quite a sensation. You don't even know about it. You only know how to immerse yourself in happiness. I thought some people were lonely. Who knew that they would get married quietly? Su Mo was embarrassed. She blushed and said, Oh, when Yuan, when did you become so good at making fun of people? When Yuan smiled and didn't explain. They went back to the hospital together. Qin Chen was telling Kong Chiao about Teacher Kang's condition and the operation plan. Kong Chiao listened to such difficult content with great interest. This word seemed a little scary, but he was enjoying it. He probably believed in Qin Chen, so he didn't feel any pressure. What he cared about was how much Teacher Kong would suffer. Later, when he thought of his old mother's pain after the operation, he was still very worried. Qin Chen was calm. I will use the best pain-relieving equipment. After all, 80 million yuan is very expensive. Mr. Kong, you always take care of my business. Of course, I have to take care of you. As soon as he finished speaking, an elegant male voice came from the door. I told you that you're a quack. You're lying again. Qin Chen looked over and saw her husband, Lan Yu, standing at the door. Her eyes flashed with surprise. You're back. I just got off the plane. I came to see a quack first. Lan Yu smiled faintly. Qin Chen placed a document on the table and leaned against the cabinet. His posture was very charming. He could be a man or a woman, and he could attack or defend. Lan Yu didn't care that Dr. Qin was the most popular doctor in the hospital. He only knew that she was his wife, no matter how handsome she was or whether she was wearing men's clothes today. Fortunately, her hair reached her shoulders. He went forward and kissed her. His voice was a little hoarse. "What time do you get off work today?" "Right away." Qin coughed. "There's a major operation tomorrow. Leave early today." In fact, she knew that Lan Yu missed her. If she stayed with him at night, she probably wouldn't be able to endure the 10-hour operation tomorrow, so she would rather work hard during the day. After saying that, Qin was ready to get off work. Lan Yu hugged her and said goodbye to the others, then left with Dr. Qin. The nurse covered her face. "What a perfect picture. Mr. Lan is getting more and more handsome. Just now, I saw a woman in Dr. Qin. Mo, when Yuan, and Su Mo Yimubai, when Yuan, Kong Chiao, and Su Mo were confused. However, they knew that Qin was a woman. When they saw Lan Yu, they realized that a person like Qin could also fall in love with another person. When Lan Yu appeared, Qin's eyes were very different. It was the eyes of someone who really liked someone. It was full of love. Qin and Lan Yu got into the car together. Qin's white robe had been taken off, and there was a shirt and trousers inside. As soon as they got into the car, Lan Yu couldn't wait to kiss her. After kissing for a long time, Qin pushed him. "What's wrong?" There was a touch of love, jade, and evil fire in his eyes. He had been on a business trip for a long time and hadn't touched her for half a month. It was impossible for him not to miss her. He asked suspiciously, "Is your period coming?" "No, I mean the security guard came over." He probably thought that two men were kissing in the car. Qin sighed. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talk about life and find a confidant. Chapter 4176. After she said that, Lan Yu gently pinched her face. "You're being naughty again." He sat up straight, closed his eyes, and sighed. Qin, after all these years, you still like to tease people." Qin was not in a hurry to drive. He leaned over and asked in a low voice, "You don't like it?" Lan Yu's eyes opened a slit, and then he smiled gently. "What do you think?" He reached out and stroked her arm. "Drive. I'll sleep for a while, and then I'll feed you when we get home." "Lan Yu, you're already so old. Can't you not be so stubborn? Isn't it good to face your middle-age crisis?" "I can understand." Qin smiled. "Really?" Lan Yu closed his eyes. "You're the one who doesn't want to deal with me, right?" He admitted that he was a little greedy, and he was a little passionate about the obligations between husband and wife. But when had he not served her well? How could she dislike it? Qin smiled. "I don't mean anything else. I just think that middle-aged people should take care of their health." "Don't you think so?" Lan Yu snorted. He probably didn't want to change. Qin didn't say anything more. He just said softly, "Sleep for a while. I'll wake you up when we arrive." Lan Yu nodded. Qin drove directly back to the villa where they lived. When the car stopped, Lan Yu also woke up. Qin took the initiative to kiss him. "Lan Yu, you haven't been home for a long time." Lan Yu reached out and pressed her head. They kissed quietly. After the kiss, he said in a hoarse voice, "Qin, I like it when you speak so softly." Qin Chen smiled. I missed you. Lan Yu unbuckled the seatbelt and carried her out of the car. Without bothering about the luggage, he went straight to the bedroom and went straight to the point. They were like this. When he came back from a business trip, he usually went to look for her. Or he would go home. If she was really busy, he would settle things in her office and have a full meal first. After a few rounds of lovemaking, they washed up and comfortably nestled on the bed together to talk. But they couldn't fall asleep immediately because they missed each other so much. However, Qin Chen's reaction was getting slower and slower. Lan Yu lowered his head. His voice was a little hoarse. Sleep for a while if you're tired. You still have surgery tomorrow, right? Qin Chen grunted, yes, there's a big operation. You know Kong Qiao, it's his mother. The Yi family found a connection, so they can't get away from it. Secondly, there are some personal feelings. Kong Qiao is the top girl in Qin Mo's company. Lan Yu laughed. What do you mean by top card? You make it sound like it's a duckling. Qin Chen lay in his arms. His slender and beautiful fingers gently stroked Lan Yu's chest. He chuckled. Lan Yu, you can actually be a duckling with your performance just now. The rich women will definitely like you. Lan Yu frowned slightly. Nonsense. How can I bear to give my energy to others? It's not enough to feed you. I was forced. Qin Chen smiled. Actually, I like to be the one on top. Lan Yu raised his eyebrows devilishly. Really? Let's try again. Qin Chen bit his lip. That's not what I meant. I mean, however, Lan Yu had already taken action. Just as they were about to enter the alley, Qin Chen's phone rang. Initially, Lan Yu wanted to ignore it. However, her phone kept ringing. Qin Chen was distracted. In the end, she took the phone and looked at it. It's my second brother. Lan Yu wanted to be closer. She pushed him with her hand and turned to the side. She mouthed, "Stop it." Chapter 4177. Lan Yu lay on the bed with his hands covering his eyes. He let out a long sigh. This second brother-in-law of his had even ruined the couple's sex life many times. He got up and said, "I'm going to take a shower." Qin Chen knew that he was a little angry. He covered the phone and said, "I'll make it up to you later." Lan Yu came over and bit the tip of her nose. "Mrs. Lan, how many times do you think you owe me?" Qin Chen smiled and continued to talk to Qin Mo while listening to the sounds coming from the bathroom. When Lan Yu came out, he only had a narrow bath towel around his waist. He looked at Qin Chen and was a little worried. He went over and asked, "What's wrong?" Qin Chen was a little stunned. After a long time, he said, "My brother hurt He Huan. I have to go and have a look." Lan Yu was also stunned. He frowned and said, "How can that be? Doesn't Qin Mo love your sister-in-law the most? He Huan is also young. If Qin Mo goes crazy, he won't be able to withstand the torture." Qin Chen was helpless. "That's right. I don't know what's wrong with Qin Mo. He just cares about that Rong Yu. He has the same name as our son. He has a knot in his heart. Even if He Huan gets close to our son, he will still be suspicious. Why don't we change our name? Isn't it better to call him Lan Yu?" Lan Yu said sourly. In fact, he also minded it. Xiao Rong Yu was his son, but Qin Chen still kept the surname Rong. Although Rong Lei was an evil person, he knew that Rong Lei had a place in Qin Chen's heart. After he finished speaking, Qin Chen smiled. "Have you minded it for a long time?" "No." Lan Yu smiled. "Am I such a petty person?" Maybe. Qin Chen also got out of bed. I have to go take a look. You stay at home and rest. Just as she was about to change, Lan Yu grabbed her hand. I'll go with you. I'll drive. I'm worried about you going alone. Qin Chen turned his head, looked at him, and agreed. After being done with by him a few times, she was really tired. She didn't know where he got his energy from when he was already in his 40s. Qin Chen and Lan Yu changed their clothes and went to the hospital where Qin Mo and He Huan were. As soon as he entered the ward, Qin Chen was stunned. She originally thought that Qin Mo was just a little violent when it came to the matters between husband and wife. But when she saw He Huan, she was quite shocked. His injuries were quite severe. There were bruises all over his body, and there were even marks on his neck where he had been choked. There were obvious fingerprints. He Huan lay quietly and looked at the ceiling while Qin Mo stood beside her. Qin Chen went over and said in a low voice, "Brother, what happened?" Qin Mo's gaze fell on He Huan's face. He said in a hoarse voice, "She met Rong Yu and I brought her home." Qin Chen almost couldn't listen to him anymore. She interrupted Qin Mo, "He Huan is your wife. Brother, she's not like those women who can be manipulated at will." She was speechless. She could imagine how serious He Huan's injuries were. She went over and whispered into He Huan's ear, "Second sister-in-law, let me help you check, okay?" At this time, Lan Yu dragged Qin Mo out. Lan Yu was also quite helpless. As Qin Chen's husband, he certainly knew that Qin Mo's only weakness was He Huan, and He Huan didn't like him very much. The couple's relationship was like walking on thin ice. Lan Yu handed over a cigarette and lit it for Qin Mo. Then, he patted his shoulder and said, "You can't be so violent even if you're quarreling." Chapter 4178. They were all adults and they could tell that this was something that would only happen when one was furious and close to rape. He Huan's injuries should be quite serious. This time around, she was probably deeply hurt. Not to mention love, even ordinary familial love would be worn out. Moreover, He Huan's parents probably wouldn't agree to it either. Lan Ding didn't know how to comfort her and could only accompany Qin Mo to smoke. After a while, he said, "Do you have any plans?" Qin Mo raised his head. She said she wanted a divorce and that's why I did it. Lan Yu, sometimes I wonder if I'm wrong. I've liked her for so many years, but all I've brought to her is restraint, unhappiness, and hurt. You don't know how she looks at me now. It's all fear. He wasn't a violent person but this time around, he really did hit He Huan. Qin Mo felt that he was a pitiful person who couldn't get what he loved. He laughed at himself and smoked slowly. Without saying a word, he continued to look into the distance. After a long time, Qin Chen came out with a serious expression. "Brother, He Huan's injuries are quite serious. I've talked to her doctor and apart from a violent tear, she also has soft tissue injuries. It seems like she'll have to rest for a month." Her eyes were filled with disapproval. "Brother, if you really love He Huan, let her go." She looked at He Huan pitifully too. Qin Mo's eyes narrowed. He clenched his fists. After a long time, he said in a hoarse voice, "You asked me to let her go, but who will let me go?" If he had known that he wasn't the one she loved, he wouldn't have been so foolish and delusional for so many years. How could he tell who was right and who was wrong when it came to love and hate between him and He Huan? But now, she wasn't the only one who was disheartened. He was too. Qin Mo looked down. "Tell her that I'll find someone to take care of her. If she doesn't want to go back, she can move out and live on her own for the time being. I'll consider our marriage carefully. As for Yi Huan, tell her not to even think about it." Hearing that, Chen couldn't help but say, "Brother, aren't you going too far? She was the one who gave birth to Yi Huan, aren't you being too unreasonable?" Chen Mo was silent for a while before he said in a low voice, "Even if Yi Huan had to choose, she would choose me. Who would choose a mother who runs around all day? Yi Huan only has her own career. She won't be able to give it up and return home." Chen Mo closed his eyes and said, "Just tell her that." He added, "I haven't thought about it yet. If we really end things, I won't miss out on a single cent of the compensation." Chen was startled. After a while, he said, "If you let go, you'll regret it. At the very least, it's unwise to let go now. Even if they didn't wish each other well, they shouldn't hate each other as much as they did now." She could tell that Yi Huan liked Chen Mo in the past. Chen really didn't know how they managed their marriage to end up like this. Perhaps, Chen Mo shouldn't have let Yi Huan leave back then. Chen couldn't say anything more. However, she said that she didn't want to be a mouthpiece. She couldn't say such heartless words. If he wanted to say it, she would say it to Yi Huan herself. She didn't believe that Chen Mo could say such words to Yi Huan. However, she was wrong. The relationship between Chen Mo and Yi Huan had reached a freezing point. When he saw Yi Huan and Rongyu meeting, he made her promise to never see him again. When Yi Huan refused, he used force and said a lot of heartless words. Chapter 4179. When he saw Yi Huan and Rongyu meeting, he made her promise that she would never see him again. When Yi Huan refused, he used force and said a lot of heartless words. What harm was there in saying a few more words now? After Chen and Lan Yu left, Chen Mo returned to the ward. Yi Huan was still lying quietly. Chen Mo sat beside her and held her hand. His voice was slightly hoarse. "I've already informed your parents to come and take care of you. Yi Huan, you can sue me." Her gaze fell on his face. After a while, she said softly, "I know what you're thinking. You must be thinking that if Yi Huan doesn't belong to me after the divorce, you can compensate me with money. You can even date any man I want, right?" Chen Mo didn't deny it. He stared at her for a while, then got up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. He stood there quietly, as if he was thinking. Yi Huan lay there and didn't rush him. They had been like this for many years, and he finally broke out. Yi Huan didn't want to explain to him that she and Rongyu just happened to know each other. It was normal for them to have a drink and talk. She liked Rongyu's work very much. She was a director and had a passion for creating. This had nothing to do with personal feelings. And Chen Mo had never understood her, let alone supported her. She had once thought that she could be a good mother for Yi Huan. She could stay in B City every 2 or 3 years to shoot a film. She could make appropriate sacrifices so that Yi Huan could have a normal family. But now she felt that she was abnormal, and so was Chen Mo. Yi Huan had known him for many years. She could guess what he was thinking. He was thinking about divorce. Indeed, she had wanted to get a divorce for many years, but now she had to consider it. It was because of Yi Huan. She was waiting for his decision before thinking about it. In addition to feeling depressed, she was also a little afraid of him. She couldn't imagine lying on his bed in the future. She felt that she would suffocate to death. She was extremely afraid of his violence in bed. He was like a madman. Chen Mo was no longer the person he used to be. Tears welled up in Yi Huan's eyes. She tried to turn her face away, but he didn't give her the chance to do so. He turned around and saw her tears. If it was in the past, he would have been heartbroken, but now that she was in this state, he did not feel any pain, because his heart was in more pain than hers. What's more painful than always thinking that you're loved, only to find out that the person you love was never you until you're about to get married. What's more painful than hearing your wife call someone else's name in her sleep in the middle of the night? At that time, the pain in Chin Mo's heart was called Rongyu. As for He Huan, he never knew how much he loved her. Now, even he himself couldn't remember what he loved about her in the past. Was it her princess-like appearance and personality, or something else? Perhaps it was his instinct and he was born to like He Huan. This love was now fading. He allowed it to fade away and did not hold her back, so he made a move on her. Ha! Chin Mo laughed coldly, a little self-deprecating. We're finally evil in each other's hearts. After saying that, he looked at He Huan quietly. Let's get a divorce. He Huan lay there without moving. It was as if she had lost consciousness, quietly listening to what he said. After a long time, she found her voice. Okay, she said. Then, she closed her eyes and refused to look at him again. Chin Mo let out a long breath. When you're better, I'll ask the lawyer to come and talk. Chapter 4180. Chin Mo thought that he was finally a little tired. He was tired of chasing after someone like that. He had once loved someone deeply and was ecstatic over the course of love. But later on, he started to hate her. When love and hate intertwined within his body, he rarely felt any sweetness, only pain. Therefore, he felt that he should just give up. That would be the best for everyone. After so many years, there was no point in dragging it out. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a decision that he had made after torturing each other for many years. Chin Mo said hoarsely, "You can call me if you need anything." He Huan did not speak the entire time, merely lying there quietly as though she had lost her life. After a long time, she said softly, "I don't have anything I want." "That's fine too. I'll wait for your parents outside," he said calmly. He Huan realized that he said your parents instead of mom and dad. She knew that he was intending to let go completely. She should be happy, but her body and heart were in so much pain that she could not bring herself to be happy. She could not bear to part with Yi Huan either. She lay there quietly for a while before saying softly, "About the divorce, let me think about it." Chin Mo knew that she was worried about Yi Huan, and he also knew that she had requirements for Yi Huan's upbringing and visitation. He said calmly, "I won't make things too difficult for you. After all, Yi Huan is still young and needs a mother, even though you haven't been competent all these years." "That's right, I haven't been competent." Yi Huan murmured softly, her eyes burning. She reached out to cover her eyes, not wanting him to look at her anymore. Chin Mo looked at her silently. Just as he was about to say something, the door of the ward opened. It was Uncle Kaim, He Shuxing, and He Huan's mother, Su Qing. Other than that, Qin Anlin and Yi Liangqiu came over as well. With something as big as this happening, it was impossible for them to not come over as elders. Looking at the state He Huan was in, the elders did not know what to say, especially Su Qing. He Huan was her flesh and blood, so she was the one who cared about her the most. She went over and asked her in a low voice, but He Huan only said that she was fine. In the end, only Su Qing accompanied He Huan while the others went to a small reception room next door. Yi Liangqiu felt extremely guilty. She comforted He Huan and apologized to Su Qing. As a mother, she had to be humble at this time. Moreover, she had a good relationship with Su Qing. Moreover, she had watched He Huan grow up. Under these circumstances, she was embarrassed. He Huan didn't get angry because of this. Instead, she whispered that she was fine and called Yi Liangqiu aunt. Yi Liangqiu was stunned. So did Su Qing. They had always thought that Qin Mo was too heavy-handed with the young couple, but they didn't expect things to escalate to this extent. Although Qin Mo was in the wrong this time, they knew that Qin Mo liked He Huan for so many years. It would be a pity if they divorced now. Yi Liangqiu thought that if they divorced, her son would probably be depressed for a long time. Although he was the one who did it. In the small guest room, Kam couldn't make a move, so Qin Anlin slapped his son twice and lectured him harshly. What kind of man are you to hit your wife? Qin Mo, you're too much. Look at how well your big brother dotes on his wife. Shua is so old, but she's acting like a little girl in her early 20s. Qin Mo did not retaliate. Instead, he took a step back and tilted his head to the side. It was as though he was staring and reminiscing. After a while, he said softly, Dad, He Huan and I might be getting a divorce. I want to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. Talking about life and looking for bosom friends, recommending the urban guru Shi Xinshu. Chapter 4181. Qin Anlin was a little breathless after hitting him twice. When he heard what Qin Mo said, his eyes widened. What divorce? You're a muddle-headed bastard. Did I raise you up so that you could get a divorce? Qin Mo didn't refute. He just lowered his eyes and said softly, Dad, I've made up my mind. Qin Anlin wanted to hit him again, but Kaim stopped him and sighed. Anlin, I know you want to stand up for me. That's why you're acting like this. You've already scolded Qin Mo. If they want a divorce, it's really their own problem. There's no need to hit or scold them. As long as they don't regret their decision, it's fine. Kaim looked at Qin Mo and said gently, I know you've been waiting for He Huan all these years. Now that you don't want to wait anymore, your aunt and I won't make things difficult for you. Since you can't be together, it's better to separate. However, Uncle Qin Mo has something to say to you. Qin Mo didn't say anything. He continued, you know He Huan's personality. After a divorce, she won't take the initiative to come back. Even if she wants to, I won't say much. But if you want to come back, Qin Mo, as your parents, we won't allow it. Qin Mo's body trembled. Kaim smiled bitterly. I won't scold you because I know you have He Huan in your heart. We can't forgive you for hitting her, but we can't interfere in the affairs of a husband and wife. However, after hitting her, you want to divorce her. Seeing how resolute you are, I think it's your idea and you brought it up. So since we've reached this point, it's decided. In the future, whether you regret it or not, He Huan won't rely on you anymore. Qin Mo was even more speechless. It was as if something was stuck in his throat. But Qin Anlin asked in a rough voice, do you still want a divorce, you brat? Do you think divorce is that simple? Marriage is that simple? Do you know that your mother and I, your Uncle Kaim and Auntie Sue, are together because of me? You guys live a simple life, and the country is prosperous and the people are at peace. You don't know that everything else in this world is trivial except for life and death. You beat your wife like this, and you still have the nerve to mention divorce. Qin Mo frowned. Dad. Kaim said faintly, don't say any more, Anlan. Marriage isn't something that can be forced. I know He Huan's temper and they don't get along. Su Cheng also said that He Huan has wasted Qin Mo's life for the past few years. This time, it's settled. Let's not talk about it anymore. Yi Huan still has to take care of. As he spoke, his voice also choked slightly. He patted Qin Anlin's shoulder. For Yi Huan's sake. After saying that, Kaim left on his own. Only the father and son were left in the small reception room. Chin Anlin stared at Chin Amo. I really want to bite you to death. Chin Amo slumped onto the sofa and rubbed his forehead with one hand. His voice was very soft. Dad. I was afraid. I was afraid that I would kill He Huan. At that time, He Huan had been tortured by him for a whole night. She lay there as if she had lost her life. However, she did not cry out in pain, nor did she ask him to send her to the hospital. At that time, he thought to divorce her. She must hate him to the core. Chin Anlin looked at his son and found a trace of pain on his face. He lit a cigarette, not for himself, but for Chin Amo. Have a cigarette. Think about it again. Chapter 4182. There's no need to think about it, Chin Amo murmured. I don't want to wait any longer, Dad. I don't think I can wait any longer. He didn't know that he had been so close to getting it, but he had missed it. When he turned back, He Huan was long gone. Even though he had waited for her, every time she thought of that scene, she still couldn't be like before. They had missed each other so much that they had come to this point. Uncle Kaim said that if they divorced, they shouldn't regret it. He Huan wouldn't turn back, and as her parents, they wouldn't agree either. How could Chin Amo not know that? So, after thinking about it for so many years, how could he have known that this would be the result? He just wanted a promise to never see Rongyu. Everyone knew that Rongyu was his bottom line, but He Huan didn't know. Or she pretended not to know. Because she didn't love him and didn't care about him, she didn't know when he was hurting, and she didn't want to know. So, he hurt her. But when she hurt, he hurt even more. He didn't want to feel sorry for her anymore, so they divorced. Chin Amo smiled bitterly and closed his eyes. Finally, they were going to divorce. He and He Huan had known each other for many years, but now that he thought of her, he could only remember her looking at him in fear on the bed, her body covered in wounds. Chin Amo covered his hand, not wanting to think about it. He couldn't accept that he was the one who hurt her more than anyone else. He used to treat her like the apple of his eye. Because of the relationship between the two families, once Chin Mo's family got violent, He Huan's matter cooled down. Yi Huan had been well protected and lived in the Chin family's old mansion, while Su Qing took care of Yi Huan, waiting for her to be discharged from the hospital to discuss the divorce. Chin Amo didn't come back after that. He lived alone in the condominium and didn't sleep on the bed. Whenever he saw it, he would be reminded of the violence he had done to Yi Huan. He started to lose sleep and drove to the hospital in the middle of the night. He didn't go in to see her, only sitting at the door. Su Qing saw him once, but didn't say anything, just brushing past him. How could a mother not feel resentful? Yi Huan had to rest for at least half a month with her injuries. Which mother wouldn't feel sorry for her? Chin Mo's lips moved, and he called her auntie. Su Qing stopped and turned her head, expressionless. Are you here to see Yi Huan? Chin Amo stepped forward. How is she? It's not good. He has to stay in the hospital for another week. Su Cheng's voice was a little low. He always has a recurring fever. As for the reason for the fever, Chin Amo should know. Chin Amo narrowed his eyes. It's my fault. Su Qing didn't blame him. She just said lightly, I heard from your uncle that you've decided to divorce. Since you've made the decision, don't be reluctant anymore. I'll take care of Su Qing here. Don't worry. If there's anything else, wait until she's better. It's too cruel to talk about divorce now. Don't you think so, Chin Amo? These words caused Chin Amo to be speechless. He could only lower his eyes and say nothing. Su Qing didn't make things difficult for him. She pushed the door open and went in. In the middle of the night, Hee-hwan woke up and leaned against the headboard quietly. No one knew what she was thinking. Su-ching closed the door. "Did you hear that?" Hee-hwan looked up and said in a low voice, "Yes, I heard it." Su-ching sat beside her, peeled a fruit for her and handed it to her. "What do you think?" Hee-hwan didn't answer directly. Instead, she asked her mother, "Mom, if it were you and Dad, would you not divorce because of me?" Chapter 4183. Su-ching shook her head. "I don't know. Hee-hwan, no one can make a decision for you. All you need to think about is your happiness and happiness, right?" Hee-hwan shook her head. Then, she hugged her knees and blinked gently. "Mom, my marriage with Chin Mo is not his fault alone. When I married him, I didn't love him, but later on, I liked him. I don't know how things turned out like this. When I came back, I thought about living like this for the sake of Hee-hwan. But maybe I'm too stubborn and I don't want to submit to his arrangements. He cares too much about my past. Mom, maybe it's for the best. Let's just leave it at that." It was the first time that Su-ching had heard Hee-hwan say this. She was a little shocked. She had always thought that Hee-hwan had never liked Chin Mo. But now, it was like this. She couldn't help but ask, "Do you want to reconsider?" Hee-hwan shook her head. "No," he asked for a divorce. "Besides, I won't give up on something that I have persevered for so long just for someone. I don't want to become another person." Why would she beg Chin Mo not to divorce after he hit her and asked for a divorce? He appeared now probably because he was as sad as she was that they had ended in such a terrible way. Actually, they could have separated in a dignified manner a few years ago. Hee-hwan didn't eat the fruits. She placed them neatly at the head of the bed. After a long time, she said, "Mom, let him leave. Just tell him that I don't hate him. Just take it as the price he had to pay for waiting for her all these years." Su-ching sighed and went out. Chin Mo was smoking in the corridor. When he saw Su-ching, he immediately put out the cigarette. "How is she?" Su-ching walked to him. She used to be very satisfied with Chin Mo because Chin Mo was the child of Chin Anlin and Yi Liangqiu. He was like half a son to her. But now, things were different. She felt a little complicated. After a while, she asked, "Chin Mo, do you regret it?" Chin Mo clenched his fingers. What did she say? Doesn't she want a divorce? Su-ching shook her head and said softly, "Hee-hwan wants you to go back. She said she doesn't hate you." Chin Mo was stunned. That was it. Why did he feel even more disappointed when she said she didn't hate him? Su-ching still sighed. "Chin Mo, you can't be too greedy. It's already very decent of you to break up like this. Don't come again. I don't know what to say to you. Everything was fine. Just pretend that you and Hee-hwan are not fated to be together. Find a girl and live a good life together." She turned to leave. Chin Mo suddenly said, "Aunt Su, are you going to let Hee-hwan go on a blind date?" Su-ching was stunned. After a long while, she said, "It depends on her. It's best if she has someone she likes. If she doesn't, the family will make arrangements for her. She can't be naked for the rest of her life. Chin Mo, we have to look forward, don't you think so?" Chin Mo knew what she meant. He wouldn't be single. His family would make arrangements for him. There would even be many women sticking to him. How could the CEO of King Entertainment lack women? There were many women who wanted to be the CEO of King Entertainment. Su-ching went in and didn't come out again. Now, Chin Mo felt that there was no reason for him to stay. He drove away. His mind was filled with Su Cheng's words. She would look for a blind date for He Huan. His fingers tightened on the steering wheel. He and He Huan were still legally married. They were on the same household register. Her family had already thought of a way out. Wasn't that normal? He was the one who said he wanted a divorce. Wasn't that a normal reaction? At that moment, he realized what Uncle Keim had said. He wanted to go back. As her parents, they wouldn't agree to it. After the family violence, he had a chance to be forgiven by the elders. He didn't want it. In the future, He Huan might be Rong Yu's wife or someone else's wife. But she would never be Qin Mo's wife again. He wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, hubby, addicted to pampering. He followed Yudu literature on WeChat. Talking about life and looking for a confidant. Chapter 4184. While Qin Mo and He Huan were arguing for a divorce, things were going smoothly for the Kong family. Teacher Kang's surgery was very successful, and she recovered very well within a week. This was also attributed to the comfort in her heart. When a person was in a good mood, they would have something to look forward to, which was more useful than any supplements. Qin Chen checked Teacher Kong and smiled. The old lady is recovering very well, it's a miracle. Kong Chiao thanked him profusely. For a person like Kong Chiao, success and recognition were enough in life, especially since he had a wife. His only regret was that he had let down his old mother. Now that Teacher Kong could live for a few more years, Kong Chiao felt very comforted. He purposely went to Qin Chen's office, but he didn't give him money. In fact, Qin Chen loved money the most. Kong Chiao gave him a top-notch coffee, knowing that Qin Chen liked it. Qin Chen didn't stand on ceremony. He took it off and smelled it, knowing that it was the best, so he raised his eyebrows. Thanks. Then, he served Kong Chiao a cup of coffee he brewed himself. They were very familiar with each other, so they chatted about daily life. I heard that my second sister-in-law, who is He Huan, asked you to act in a movie called Twin. You turned it down. Kong Chiao nodded. Yes, because of various reasons, I turned it down. He had heard about President Qin's family affairs, so he asked out of concern, I heard that director he is sick, how is she now? Qin Chen took a sip of coffee, then looked up at Kong Chiao silently, and said slowly, my second brother and she might be getting a divorce. It will probably be done in a few days. Kong Chiao was stunned, and didn't know what to say for a moment. Qin Chen smiled faintly. Their personalities might really be incompatible. He Huan is very independent, and Qin Mo wants a little wife to raise at home. Maybe it's better for them to separate. After a while, Kong Chiao said, I'll visit Director He when I'm free. Don't. He Huan is quite a strong-willed person. She will probably contact you later. I think she will continue filming that film after she parted ways with my second brother. Qin Chen smiled. Actually, I think my second brother is overreacting. There were bound to be misunderstandings and conflicts between husband and wife. Qin Mo might have loved her so deeply that he didn't know how to get along with He Huan. After Qin Chen finished speaking, Kong Chiao felt a little emotional, but after all, it was President Qin's family affairs, so he couldn't say too much. Now that Qin Chen had revealed it to him, it was obvious that he wanted him to make a choice between King Entertainment and He Huan. This could be considered a favor from Qin Chen. When Kong Chiao returned to the ward, Su Mo, who was taking care of Mr. Kong, fell asleep. When he saw Kong Chiao, he asked in a low voice, "What's wrong? You don't look too well." Kong Chiao walked to the side with her and said in a low voice, "President Qin and He Huan might be parting ways." Just now, Qin Chen told me that he wanted me to consider if I should cooperate with director He. Su Mo was married to Kong Chiao now, so of course she didn't care about Kong Chiao's career at all. Moreover, she used to be a manager, so she was very familiar with this aspect. She bit her lip and said, "What do you think?" Kong Chiao was a little amused. "Are you concerned about me?" "How can I not be concerned? Mom and I are counting on you to support us, and the baby also needs money for milk powder in the future." Su Mo placed her hand on his leg. "Mr. Kong, you are still under a lot of pressure." Kong Chiao smiled faintly. "I thought I could do whatever I want with my current assets." She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talking about life, looking for bosom friends. Chapter 4185. He knew that although the Home of Love had to spend some money from time to time, it was famous, so there was no need to subsidize a lot. Moreover, Su Mo and his mother were not extravagant people, so raising a child, he leaned over and pressed his forehead against hers, lowering his voice. "Are you really willing to have children with me? How many are you going to have? I promise that every one of them will be white and chubby." Su Mo licked her lower lip. "When Mom's condition stabilizes, we'll have children, okay?" Kong Chiao smiled faintly and said, "Okay." He hugged her and did nothing but leaned against Su Mo's head. Both he and Su Mo came from ordinary families, and Su Mo had a fragmented past, so once he made up his mind, he would not change it. He and Su Mo would never be like President Qin and director He. In fact, feelings were very simple. Love or not love. If one couldn't figure it out, they would often take a lot of detours, just like before. Kong Chiao pursed his lips and sighed silently. A few days later, Teacher Kong was discharged from the hospital. Kong Chiao took her and Su Mo home together, and also opened a villa given by Yi Mubai next door. The decoration was very good, but Teacher Kong insisted on living alone. Kong Chiao also acquiesced. In addition to the original aunt, there was another aunt. Su Mo complained to him, "Mom's health is not good, how can you let her live alone?" Kong Chiao took off his coat and pulled Su Mo to sit next to him. He reached out and stroked her hair, smiling. "My mom is used to it. Besides, it's just next door, you can walk for a minute. You can accompany her during the day, and we can come back at night to sleep. It's no different from living together, and my mom will be at ease this way." As he said, he pinched her face. "Do you think you can be at ease when you're with her? After all, we're from 2 different generations. I can't always sit still, and there will always be times when we're intimate. If we bump into each other, everyone will feel uncomfortable." Su Mo just stared at him, not saying anything. Kong Chiao patted her hand. "Wait a minute." She looked at him, not understanding what he was trying to do. Kong Chiao walked to the bookcase and pulled open a door. Inside was a safe. He keyed in a set of passwords and opened it. He took out a booklet and placed it in Su Mo's hands. "This is my savings over the years. Some of them are invested in companies and stocks. These are not touched. There are also some houses that are being rented. My financial consultant is managing them. The annual rent is about 10 to 20 million. You can keep this in your hands." Su Mo looked at him and opened the booklet again. When he took a look, his eyes were dazzled. There were a lot of zeros. She counted and found that there were more than 4 billion. Kong Chiao squatted beside her and murmured, including the stocks and real estate in his hands, he should have about 7 billion. He might not be a wealthy family, but it should be enough to support a family. Sumo looked at the book, then at him. Do you really want me to manage this? Aren't you afraid that I will lose all of them? I won't. He smiled. You're not that stupid. Look at how much you've spent and how much you've gotten back. Don't you think you're stupid? Sumo thought about it and felt that she was quite smart. She couldn't help but laugh and wave the booklet in her hands. From now on, I'm a little rich woman. Kong Chiao held her hand. Then can I not renew the contract with King Entertainment and do what I like? Sumo looked at him. He smiled. I want to do something that I like. I really want to act in this film. I had no choice in the past. Now, do you object? She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, she followed Yudu literature. Talking about life and looking for bosom friends. Chapter 4186. For a moment, Sumo knew why he was showing her this and felt touched. Kong Chiao was just telling her that he had earned enough to live on and that even if he didn't earn money in the future, she and the child would still have enough to eat and wear. She hugged him and said hoarsely, Kong Chiao, you are actually an old husband and a good father. Does that mean you agree? He whispered into her ear. Sumo did not say anything, only nodding silently. Kong Chiao caressed her head and pressed his face against hers. After a while, he asked her softly, are we going to have a child now? Sumo was stunned and glared at him. Kong Chiao, can you be more serious? This is serious. Look, I'm almost 40 and Mom is in good health and she has someone to take care of her. If you have a child earlier, she will be happy and live to a ripe old age. Don't you want Mom to live to a ripe old age? As Kong Chiao spoke, he had already carried Sumo to the big bed and pressed her down to kiss her. Sumo helplessly accepted his kiss and said in a low voice, you are simply just twisting words and forcing logic. How can there be such a fallacious logic? Kong Chiao chuckled and kissed her while caressing her face in a manly manner. That's the logic in my bed. After all, they hadn't done it for many days and they had just gotten together. He pressed her down a few times. He had always been shameless and Sumo couldn't do anything about it. Thus, she didn't say anything more and didn't ask for contraception. He didn't have any protection either. When he said that he was worried about her health, it was like a fart. She would be damned if she believed a man's words. However, Kong Chiao was really nice to her and teacher Kong. They didn't have a wedding after getting their marriage certificate and were just living together. It was perfect in all aspects. Kong Chiao officially terminated his contract with King Entertainment. It would take effect in about 2 months. When the contract expired, both parties would part ways. However, since they were friends, Kong Chiao wasn't too heartless. He returned some resources to King Entertainment. Sumo knew what he meant. He called him over to have a good talk but couldn't keep him. They were the boss and the artist and could be considered friends. They sat on the sofa and smoked a few cigarettes. After a while, Sumo asked in a low voice, did Chen tell you the news? That's why you made this decision, right? Kong Chiao smiled bitterly. President Chen is really perceptive. It's not that I'm perceptive, I just know that you really want this role. Sumo raised his head and smiled. I just didn't expect you to put in so much effort. You know that you can count the money lying down if you stay at King Entertainment. You have a lot of money on you. Kong Chiao smiled faintly. I can lay down and earn money, but President Chen, I just want to do something that I like. Something you like. Sumo muttered to himself, is it that important? Kong Chiao understood what he meant and said softly, I've discussed it with Su Mo. She supports it. Chi Mo stared at her for a long time before he suddenly laughed. It's good that she agrees. As he spoke, he sighed. Did He Huan also want to do something that she liked? He didn't object. As long as she didn't act in Rong Yu's script, she could do whatever she wanted, even if it was overseas. He couldn't stand her meeting Rong Yu because when they met, he would remember how she had married him and how she had woken up calling Rong Yu's name on their wedding night. He wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, hubby, addicted to pampering. On WeChat, he followed Yudu literature. Talking about life and looking for a confidant. Chapter 4187. He was a little sick, so sick that Qin Chen had changed his son's name to Lan Yu. There seemed to be no other way but to let He Huan go. Qin Mo didn't make things difficult for Kong Chiao. After all, he had been King Entertainment's cash cow for many years. They parted on good terms. Moreover, Kong Chiao hadn't done anything wrong to the company. Thus, he said calmly, the company will hold a cocktail party to send you off. Kong Chiao didn't refuse. They were both adults and they might work together in the future. He might still be in contact with King Entertainment after he started a company. Kong Chiao said some words of thanks to put an end to it. Qin Mo patted his shoulder. I understand. They didn't talk about He Huan. Actually, they both knew that Kong Chiao had left King Entertainment because of that film. If they had to film it, Qin Mo would rather it be Kong Chiao. Because Kong Chiao wouldn't have anything to do with He Huan. He couldn't stand He Huan having anything to do with a man like Ji Rongyue while filming, even if they were going to divorce. After Kong Chiao left, Qin Mo sat in the office alone for a long time. He hadn't visited He Huan for more than a week. He heard that she had been taken back to the He family. When he went to the Qin mansion, Yi Huan would ask where his mother had gone. He would tell Yi Huan that his mother had gone to America, just like before. Yi Huan's expression was one of disappointment. At that moment, he wondered if he was wrong. Was he too selfish? He only cared about his own feelings and didn't leave a way out for Yi Huan. However, he had already said it. Whether it was between them or between the two families, the divorce was set in stone. Qin Mo couldn't go back on his word even if he wanted to. Besides, he had no intention of doing it. As he was thinking, the phone in his hand rang. He picked it up and glanced at it casually. Then, his body tensed up. It was He Huan. He probably knew what she was calling for. He didn't say anything for a long time. He Huan said faintly, Qin Mo, I want to talk to you. Qin Mo gripped the phone tightly and his voice was hoarse. Are you talking about divorce? Her silence was a tacit admission. After a while, she whispered, I'm going to the United States next week. I want to get things done in the next few days. Qin Mo suddenly said, Yi Huan has been asking about you these past 2 days. Yi Huan was stunned. Then, she felt her heart ache. She said anxiously, can we meet and talk? He knew that she was anxious because of Yi Huan. He actually didn't want to help her. He felt a little guilty towards her, but more than that, he hated her. He hated her for not loving him, hated her for meeting Rong Yu so easily, hated her for filming Rong Yu's love story. That story was so similar to her and Rong Yu. Everything she did made him, Qin Mo, look like a fool. In the end, he relented. Come to my office tomorrow. I'll have a lawyer come over. You can also hire a lawyer. No need. Her voice was very soft. I don't have too many requests. He interrupted her. It's best to hire one. Divorce is not as simple as you think, especially when it comes to children's visitation. I think you don't know the situation at home after being abroad for a long time. Huan was stunned for a moment, then she said, okay. However, early the next morning, she still came alone. When she passed the front desk, the receptionist spread the news. I heard that this and President Qin are going to divorce. It's this, there's someone outside. President Qin can't stand it anymore. She wanted to chat with more like-minded people about new wife number 1, husband, addicted to pampering. WeChat followed. You read literature, talking about life, looking for bosom friends. Chapter 4188. It can't be. President Qin is so handsome. Isn't he satisfied? The other was surprised. Who knows? Maybe he has a special hobby. Everyone has different tastes. I heard that he is a writer. He has a very good temperament. By the way, he is also very good-looking. He is 80% similar to President Qin, but his temperament is different. He is especially elegant. Aren't authors supposed to be bold? How can he compare with our President Qin? President Qin is handsome, rich, and has a very tall nose. Haven't you noticed? What if the writer has a taller nose? Huan didn't hear what they said after entering the elevator. She had never cared about such things. When she reached the top floor, Qin Mo's secretary greeted her at the elevator. Madam, President Qin has been waiting for you for a long time. Huan paused for a moment. Just call me Huan. The secretary just smiled and didn't say anything. She led Huan all the way to Qin Mo's office. In the office, apart from Qin Mo, there was another lawyer. Huan also knew him, so she nodded and sat down on the sofa. The secretary served fruit tea and kindly led them to the door. Qin Mo stood in the direction of the floor-to-ceiling window. Then, he turned his head and looked at Huan. You are here. Why didn't you bring a lawyer? His tone was very normal, as if nothing had happened. It was more like they were just in a cooperative relationship. Huan shook her head. It's not that complicated. I don't need it. Qin Mo glanced at her and then took a document from the lawyer. Take a look. If there are no problems, we will sign it. Huan lowered her head and looked at it silently. Qin Mo was very generous in terms of financial compensation. It was about 2 billion yuan, all under his personal property. However, when it came to Huan's visitation, he was more strict and unreasonable. It was stated that she was not allowed to bring Huan out of the country, nor could she bring Huan out of City B. She was also not allowed to visit Huan for more than 8 hours at a time. She could not stay overnight, and she could not visit Huan more than 4 times a month. Huan let out a long breath and looked up at Qin Mo. Qin Mo continued. If you can't accept it, we can file a lawsuit and let the court decide. But considering the time you have spent taking care of the child these years, the judge will be more inclined to let me take care of her. Huan also knew in her heart that with Qin Mo's power, it was useless for her to file a lawsuit. However, she felt a little pain in her heart. If her freedom was based on giving up Huan, she might not feel at ease in her life. However, this marriage was indeed going to be divorced. She didn't have the habit of begging people, let alone a man who attacked her. Huan finished reading the document and flipped to the last page. That was where she needed his signature. She looked at him silently for a long time. And a pen was. T. Qin Mo's voice was slightly hoarse. I'm not that unreasonable. Huan, if you want to see Huan, you can come to my parents' house anytime, as long as you don't take her away. He Huan looked down and suddenly asked, "What if you remarry?" Chi Nemo leaned against the back of the chair and said in a low voice, "Yi Huan is also your child. You can still see her if you want." He didn't say anything else. He was even more unwilling to talk to her about remarrying. Because he remembered that Uncle Kaim had said that they had to find their own people after the divorce. He didn't have any ideas for the time being, but He Huan had a ready-made candidate. Chapter 4189. He looked at her. "What about you? Will you still remember that you had a daughter after you remarry?" He Huan's temper was not very good either. Her facial expression was not pleasant and they almost quarreled. The lawyer saw that the wind was blowing in the right direction and left. There were only the two of them in the big office. Since there was no one around, He Huan did not have to worry anymore. "Chi Nemo, you don't have to say that. Aren't you talking about me and Rongyu?" Chi Nemo narrowed his eyes. He Huan picked up the pen and whispered, "Yes, I will be with him immediately after our divorce." She was probably so angry that she quickly signed the contract. Her pen was so strong that it almost scratched the paper. Chi Nemo watched from the side with his fingers clenched tightly. He said coldly, "You must not have seen the last clause. For the sake of Yi Huan's growth, she is not allowed to remarry before she is 10 years old." He Huan was stunned. She flipped through the pages and saw a small line of words. It was indeed written like that. Actually, she did not care about remarrying and did not want to continue her relationship with Rongyu. The past was the past. However, there were some people who could not let it go and wanted to find trouble with her. He Huan laughed softly and it sounded like she was mocking him. "Chi Nemo, what do you think this can do? There is a kind of relationship between a man and a woman called cohabitation, and a man like you can be a sugar daddy. What's the point of writing this now? You just don't want me to marry Rongyu, right? You just can't let go of your pride. You just care that I used you once, don't you?" Chi Nemo stared at her. "You've finally spoken your mind." He stood up and pulled her to his side. "You want to live with Rongyu?" He Huan fell into his arms. When she looked up, there was a trace of fear on her face. Chi Nemo felt a stab of pain in his heart. He knew that she still could not forget what happened that night. She had not forgotten. In fact, he had not forgotten either. He could not let it go either. Chi Nemo let go of her dejectedly and let her sit in her original position. He himself was still standing by the French window. "Chi Nemo, I'll leave after you sign the papers. I don't need your money." He Huan sounded a little tired. "Let's just let each other go, okay?" He continued to stand there, ignoring her at first. He only stood there for a long time before saying in a low voice, "You hate me, don't you?" "Yes," He Huan admitted straightforwardly. "I'm afraid of you too." Chi Nemo heaved a long sigh. "Actually, I hate you too, He Huan." As he spoke, he suddenly turned around and stared at her. There was a tinge of red in his eyes. They were bloodshot. He Huan was also looking at him. The air was also silent. It seemed to be frozen. After a long time, he finally walked over slowly and sat down opposite her. He picked up the pen on the table and signed his name. After signing the last stroke, he said in a low voice, "In our marriage, I've never loved anyone else. I only hate you." After that, he gently leaned back and covered his eyes with his hand. "Miss He, you can go now. It will take a week to get the certificate. I'll ask my secretary to send it to you. As for the transfer of property, I'll ask the company's finance department to handle it for you." He Huan's throat seemed to be choked. She could not describe the feeling. She actually really hated him, but now that they were separated like this, neither of them would have a good time. She wanted to say something, but he raised his hand. You don't have to say anything. I'm tired of hearing you hate me. There's no need to apologize. You're only sorry because you don't love me. Chapter 4190. Huan looked at him and got up silently. She walked to the door and suddenly said, "It's not like that." He lay there and did not say anything. Her voice was bitter. "I probably liked you, but it was very short. After seeing you and her in the hospital, I couldn't like you anymore. Mo, we just missed each other. When I liked you, you didn't like me anymore. When you liked me again, I couldn't love you anymore. We always missed each other." Mo closed his eyes slightly. Really? She did not say anything and opened the door to leave. As soon as she left, there was a violent sound coming from the office behind her. The desk was flipped over and so was the sofa. It was a mess. The only intact thing in the office was probably the divorce agreement. The secretary and Huan looked at each other at the door and Huan said softly, "Goodbye." She left decisively. The secretary sighed softly but could not ignore President Qin. He was so angry. It was obvious that he couldn't bear to part with her. Why did he still want a divorce? It was a temporary pleasure to divorce now, but the days of crying and kneeling would probably come later. The secretary opened the door carefully. Mo was leaning against the bookcase, his coat was thrown on the ground, his tie was loose and his hair was messy. He looked very dispirited. This was the first time the secretary had seen President Qin like this. Divorce lovelorn syndrome. The secretary had invented this phrase and thought it was very good. "President Qin, miss, he has left." The secretary reported anxiously. "So, no matter how angry you are, it will only damage the company's finances and your own hands will hurt. Miss, he will not feel bad." Mo glanced at her. "She is still my wife." Yes, madam." The secretary followed his words. However, Mo was angry again. "She will not be my wife soon." The secretary was a little embarrassed. After a while, she said, "Then I will call her director he." Hearing that Mo was going to be the director of Rong Yu's film, they divorced because of this. The secretary whispered, "Actually, it's really not worth it to get a divorce because of this. You can fully support director he's filming and visit him on set. You can be a couple on set every day and stay in the same hotel. After filming, she'll still be your wife. No one can take her away, right?" Mo kicked the sofa and found a place to sit down. "Why didn't you tell me before?" The secretary said honestly, "I didn't dare before." Mo lit a cigarette and took a puff. After a while, he said in a low voice, "It's impossible between us. I made a move on her, and I was the one who brought up the divorce first. Huan was such a proud person. She wouldn't turn back, and he didn't want to. Perhaps it was impulsive, but he really couldn't go on anymore." The secretary did not make a sound. She did not dare to make a sound. She didn't expect that a man like President Qin would lay his hands on his wife and propose a divorce first. Mo suddenly smiled bitterly, "I just don't know how to face her. I'm afraid I'll hurt her again." The secretary said in a trembling voice, "Boss, don't tell me you're paranoid." Mo glanced at her, and the secretary did not dare to say anything. "Call Lawyer Lee in and get this document done. When it's done, bring it to me," he said in a low voice. The secretary did not need to look to know what it was. She felt a little sad. It had still come to this. 3 days later, the secretary brought the documents over. Chi Nemo looked at the 2 green books and was stunned for a long time. Chapter 4191. 3 days later, the secretary brought them over. Chi Nemo stared at the 2 green books, stunned for a long time. His office had been replaced with new desks and chairs, and even the sofa. He sat at his desk, quietly looking at the 2 books. He reached for his phone, wanting to call He-Huan, but he hung up. He didn't make the call. He would call her later. He sat in his office for the whole afternoon. He knew that He-Huan had already started preparing for twin. Kong Chiao had signed a letter of intent with her, because Kong Chiao hadn't received a contract yet. Chi Nemo sat until 6 in the evening, when he remembered that Yi-Huan had asked him to accompany her for dinner. Today was Yi-Huan's birthday. They were supposed to be at a warm age, but he and Yi-Huan had divorced. He didn't tell the kid about it. He would talk about it later. He took his coat and walked out of the office slowly, bumping into Ruan Yun at the elevator. Ruan Yun seemed to have something to talk to him about, but Chi Nemo wasn't in the mood. His mind was on He-Huan, even though they were divorced. But he couldn't let it go. Perhaps it was just as Uncle Keim had said. He would regret it. He regretted it now. He didn't regret the divorce, but the violence he had done to He-Huan that night. He shouldn't have treated her like that. You should think about how to develop new talent. Oh right, let someone else take care of the one you're leading. His talent can't compare to Kong Chiao's, and he's not younger than Bai Jingxian either. He can't compete with him. Ruan Yun, I believe you have good taste. Don't let your personal feelings affect your work. Oh right, Kong Chiao is married. You should let it go. Otherwise, King Entertainment won't suit you. Ruan Yun was stunned. She hadn't expected Kong Chiao to be married. She knew that he and Su Mo were together, living together, or rather, living together. But he shouldn't be so stupid as to get married. His family was far from Su Mo's, and Su Mo had a loving family. How could he be willing to get married? By the way, he had asked Su Mo to sign a prenuptial agreement. The Kong Chiao she knew was such a person, so he should be such a person. She didn't believe that he would be assimilated by Su Mo. She didn't believe that he would fall in love with Su Mo. It must be because he wanted to get married, so Su Mo only did it occasionally. Ruan Yun tried her best to convince herself, but deep down, she knew that Kong Chiao had truly fallen in love with Su Mo. That was why he had given up everything. He had given up on King Entertainment and his past. All he wanted was to give that woman a fresh start. What about her? She had been with him for so many years, but in the end, it was just a work relationship. She had clearly raised him up single-handedly. She was indignant. She wanted to ask Kong Chiao about it. She wanted to tell him that after he left her, Ruan Yun, and King Entertainment, he would be nothing. She was very scared, and she couldn't wait to let him know. When Chi Mo arrived at the parking lot, he went to buy a gift and went to his parents' house. He didn't expect He-Huan to be there too. Therefore, when he saw He-Huan's car, he sat in the car and was stunned for a while. His heart beat wildly, like a pitiful young man. Only He-Huan would make him behave like this. Chapter 4192. Chi Nemo walked into the mansion and was surprised to see He-Huan. He-Huan, who was about to become his ex-wife, was accompanying Yi-Huan. Yi-Huan was very happy. She hugged He-Huan's neck and called her mother softly, asking why she hadn't seen her for so many days. He Huan was about to speak when she saw Qin Mo, and the air seemed to freeze. They had actually met today, but after signing the contract, they were strangers. In the past, although they weren't a loving couple, they were still official. She could endure some intimate actions for the sake of the child. But today, when their eyes met, He Huan felt a little uncomfortable. She pursed her lips. I'm here to celebrate Yi Huan's birthday. Qin Mo sat down, gave the gift in his hand to Yi Huan, and patted her. Go and play. Yi Huan went to open the gift, not caring about the adults talking. There was only a family of 3 in the living room. Qin Mo lowered his voice. You didn't say anything to her, did you? He Huan smiled lightly. Did she say that we're divorced? His gaze was a little deep, and he didn't ask any more. After a while, Qin Chen and the Qin family's parents came, and even Lan Yu came. Lan Yu was afraid that Qin Mo would go crazy, so he didn't bring him along. Qin Chen looked at the couple. She knew that they had signed the contract. She wanted to rub it again, but she couldn't say it, because Qin Mo didn't look like someone to be trifled with. She looked at Lan Yu, and Lan Yu pinched her hand, signaling her not to say anything. Things had already come to this, and it was useless to say anything more. The atmosphere was very subtle. The adults didn't talk much, and only Yi Huan was very happy. Blowing out the candles and cutting the cake, but she didn't know that this might be the last birthday of her parents. Yi Huan was having dinner here. After dinner, she hugged Yi Huan and pressed her forehead against the little fellow's. I'm going to work in another city. I'll leave tonight. Yi Huan, you have to be obedient. Yi Huan looked at Yi Huan with tears in her eyes. Will I only be able to see mommy once or twice a year? The little boy wrapped his arms around her neck. I want to go abroad with mommy. I want to be with mommy every day. Yi Huan held the soft baby in her arms and lowered her eyes. Can mommy try to come back once a week? Living in dad's apartment. Yi Huan looked at her expectantly. I want mom to give me a bath. Yi Huan hesitated for a while. Qin Mo said in a low voice, of course he's staying with dad. They had agreed not to tell Yi Huan about their divorce for the next few years, so they had to cooperate when they had to put on an act occasionally. Yi Huan did not refute. She didn't think about anything now. She hated Qin Mo in her heart. He always extinguished the hope in her heart when it was ignited. He never knew how cruel he could be. Yi Huan was about to leave. Yi Huan took Qin Mo's hand and said, Daddy, send mommy. Children always hoped that their parents would love each other, and they even created opportunities for them. Qin Chen and Lan Yu looked at each other and felt sorry for Yi Huan. She was so young. How sad she would be if she knew that her parents were divorced. Qin Mo took the car key and looked at Yi Huan. Let's go. Yi Huan nodded and walked out with him silently. The car was parked on the parking lot outside. There were only sparse lights in the courtyard at night, and it was a little cold. Yi Huan gently stroked her arm and didn't say anything until they got in the car. She said, send me to the intersection. I'll take a taxi myself. She hadn't fully recovered, so she didn't drive herself. Chapter 4193. Qin Mo tilted his head and looked at her. Where do you live? Do you live by yourself or with your parents? I live by myself. Yi Huan did not refuse. Although they were not husband and wife, she did not have the strength to be his enemy. Because they would have to get along with Yi Huan in the future. She leaned against the back of the seat and said the address in a low voice. Qin Mo also knew that place. It was a unit that Yi Huan had bought a long time ago. She would stay there when she returned to China. He did not say anything and drove there directly. They did not speak much during the 1-hour drive. Huan even closed her eyes to rest. When the car stopped, Qin Mo tilted his head and looked at her. Huan's eyes were still closed as if she was asleep. "We're here," he said softly. He watched her open her eyes and look around. She looked a little defensive. Qin Mo's heart ached. Huan said, "We're here." She took her bag and prepared to get out of the car. "Thank you." She opened the door with one hand and wanted to get out of the car. Qin Mo's other hand held her and pressed her down on the seat. He looked very calm and did not seem to be using much strength to control her. Huan's body froze for a moment. He keenly noticed it and then loosened his hand. When she was about to pull her hand back, he suddenly tightened his grip and said with difficulty, "I'm sorry about what happened that day." Huan looked up and said, "You don't have to apologize. Really, just take it as me paying you back for all these years." She calmly pulled her hand back and opened the door to get out of the car. Qin Mo's body did not move. His eyes followed her into the elevator. Not long ago, they had just watched a loving couple celebrate their child's birthday. But now, they were already strangers. He looked to the side and found that Huan's phone had fallen on the car seat. He picked it up and wanted to get out of the car to give it to her. But when he walked into the lobby, his eyes froze. Huan was not alone. She was standing face to face with a man. She looked up and stared at the man in a daze. That man was Rongyu. Qin Mo clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He controlled himself not to go up and beat the crap out of Mr. Rong. Instead, he walked over with a reserved expression. "I dropped your phone in my car." Huan tilted her head and looked at him. She took it without explaining. Actually, there was nothing much to explain. They were already divorced, and she had no idea why Rongyu was here. She thanked him softly and entered the elevator with Rongyu. Qin Mo stood there, squinting at their backs. Did Huan think that he was dead? They hadn't even registered for the certificate, and she couldn't wait. Qin Mo's fingers clenched and loosened. In the end, his pride stopped him from following them. He returned to the car, but he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he sat in the car and smoked quietly. About 10 minutes later, Rongyu came down with a folder in his hand. It seemed like he was there to retrieve something. Qin Mo got out of the car and stared at him in the dark. It was the same for Rongyu. One of them was wild and noble, while the other was reserved and gentle. They looked at each other for a long time in the dark. Then Qin Mo said in a low voice, "She is still Mrs. Qin." "I know, but she won't be any more soon." Rongyu's expression was indifferent. "I won't let Huan do anything immoral. I will pursue her in the future." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.